So Coinbase was obviously Bitcoin only for a long time, right? And then started to add other assets. Anything that was memorable as people kind of talked about the strategy evolving from Bitcoin only to other assets, and now they're even doing things around staking and custody and kind of moving outside of just help you buy Bitcoin, which sounds like that was the original mission. Kind of any takeaways there?
Yeah, I mean, Coinbase was caught flat-footed. I mean, that's part of the reason they got so beat by Binance for a while. And, it's the reason people like Olaf and Fred Ursum, left the company. They want to spread their wings. And there's a period in 2015, 16 where this Bitcoin got so bitter between the block size debate. Remember people wanted to expand it to 2 megabytes and all that. And so much of the energy was consumed in politics and backstabbing and fighting that, meanwhile, all that was going on in the Bitcoin world. And then what Vitalik was building, it seemed suddenly very positive, it seemed, full of potential. So, Fred wrote a sort of a famous blog post saying, hey, this is the future. And he left to pursue it. And Coinbase just dragged their feet, adding Ethereum, adding anything. Part of that was for regulatory reasons, to be fair, but part of it was inertia. They got complacent. And then it happened again when Binance started adding every token under the sun. There was a talk in Coinbase. People were advocating, look, let's split the company in two. We'll have an international holding company that can go play in all those markets and do the crazy stuff, and an American company, which they probably should have done. But then part of it was cultural. I mean, Olaf was saying, they had such a good 2017. They're like, oh, well, what should we do to maximize our tax advantage rather than building, they lost touch with the pulse of the crypto community. People were like, hey, let's add Dogecoin, which would have been an easy lift. And they're like, well, we don't know about the, ROI on that. And, but that's when they brought Balaji in, and he, Balaji Srinivasan is pretty famous for a variety of reasons in crypto world. And he really injected some energy and was just like, hell-bent on adding tokens. And that's, I think, how they managed to get their ass in gear again.
Yeah, so maybe talk a little bit more. Balaji came in through the Earn.com acquisition and became the CTO. I recently had him on for an episode, and we spent almost zero time talking about Coinbase, and spent most of the time talking about all of the crazy, powerful ideas he has. But in terms of that acquisition, if I remember correctly, that was the first big acquisition that they did, where it was kind of a 9-figure sum attached to it reportedly. Was that specifically for kind of a change in strategy, or what was kind of the driving force behind rather than building everything internally to go out and buy a company like that?
Balaji's a hard figure to report on. I've only met him a couple times. He's incredibly polarizing and divisive. However, what everyone agrees with is he's a genius. He's one of the sort of smartest people in crypto and in general. So the account of, getting Earn.com, some people related to me that it was a dog of a company. And since Andreessen Horowitz had a big stake in that, and Coinbase was a way to solve that problem. And a lot of people whispered in my ear that the official price, the 9 figures, whatever it was, wasn't actually true, but it was to satisfy Balaji's ego. I don't take a position on that. That's what a lot of people were whispering in my ear. However, Balaji did do the job in really kind of changing up the culture at Coinbase, and the downside was it resulted in a civil war. I mean, he pushed Adam White out. He pushed a lot of people out. As someone called him Coinbase's first brilliant asshole. Other people said he would win Survivor. I don't take a position on any of this. I don't know Balaji well enough. I do think he's got formidable intelligence, that's for sure. And then ultimately it became a showdown in Coinbase between Asif Herji, their COO and president for a while, who was making the company more corporate. And so, which had to be done. Asif did a lot of good things. He sort of made it into a mature company. But at the same time, the rank and file in Coinbase didn't like him because he wasn't a real crypto guy. And they all worshiped Balaji because Balaji could code, he knew tokens, he knew the scene, he was of it. So, and ultimately, it came to a head where there's, kind of a big body count, and then Coinbase lost a lot of people. And I think it forced Brian Armstrong to come in and lead because, Brian does not like conflict, but sometimes if your lieutenants are in a shooting war, you got to step in and do something. And the final straw was, I guess, Asif asked Brian to report to him on product. And Brian owns the majority of the company and is a CEO, and that was a bridge too far. And so that's when, he got pushed out. And then Balaji, on his 1-year vesting period, he pieced out, and that was that.
Yeah. Asif obviously used to run TD Ameritrade, right? So kind of came from a much more kind of Wall Street type background. And I guess part of this is not even just Coinbase, but most companies, as they go through what I'll just call growing pains, right? There's positives, negatives, and you're trying to build something that's worth billions and billions of dollars, right? So obviously it's going to be hard to do. Would you say that most people kind of understand that it was important to have that period where Balaji came in and had an impact? It was important to have the period where Asif came in and had an impact. And like those moments, although maybe painful at the time, have kind of built Coinbase and the culture it has into today? Or do you feel like there's kind of certain points in the history of Coinbase where those that are left point back and say, hey, we wish we could have skipped over certain periods, or we wouldn't have made certain decisions in the past that we actually ended up making?
No, I think that's a good way to look at the bigger picture. I mean, I think people in a startup going through something like that think they're the only one it's happened to. But even if you step back and he's like, look, the reality in the valley is a company gets that big that quickly, the executive team is going to turn over 2 or 3 times. So you're going to have moments like this. And then you've had the hidden hand of Andreessen the whole way too. I think Chris Dixon and Fred Wilson of, Union Square Ventures and Barry Schulman, you got these real smart, veterans who've been kind of, the hidden hand shaping the path. So, I think while it makes good newspaper copy and, salacious book gossip, I don't know if it's that different from what goes on at, any successful tech company that scales quickly.